After 5 years together, I discovered my boyfriend was secretly recording our intimate moments and sharing them with his friends. My revenge plan worked better than I could have imagined. I never thought I'd be the person posting one of these stories. I always read them thinking, how could someone not know their partner was like this? Well, now I understand. When you love someone, you overlook small things, you make excuses, you trust. Until you can't anymore. My boyfriend Jake and I had been together for 5 years. We met during my senior year of college at a mutual friend's party. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in me as a person. The connection felt strong immediately, and within 6 months, we were inseparable. By our 1-year anniversary, we had moved in together, and I honestly thought he was the one. We talked about marriage, kids, the whole future plan. He even suggested we start looking at houses together next year. Jake worked in IT at a mid-sized company downtown. He was always good with technology, constantly upgrading our home setup, installing new gadgets, security features, and smart home devices. I'm not particularly tech-savvy, so I was grateful to have someone who understood all that stuff and kept us ahead of the curve, as he'd say. Looking back now, that was the first red flag I missed. The discovery happened completely by accident. Jake had been acting weird for a few weeks, protective of his phone, staying up late after I went to bed, being vague about his weekend plans with the guys. Nothing screamed cheater, but enough small things had piled up that a seed of doubt had been planted. Last Saturday, he said he needed to go help his buddy Mike move some furniture and would be gone most of the day. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it, but something felt off. While he was gone, I decided to deep clean the apartment. We'd both been busy with work, and the place needed some attention. I started in the bedroom, changed the sheets, dusted the furniture, and was moving things around to vacuum when I noticed something strange about the digital clock on our bedside table. It was one Jake had brought home from work about a year ago, saying they were upgrading their office equipment and employees could take the old stuff. The clock looked normal at first glance, black, rectangular, with red digital numbers, but as I was moving it to dust underneath, I noticed a tiny pinhole on the front that I'd never paid attention to before. My stomach dropped. I'm not technology expert, but even I know what a camera lens looks like. With shaking hands, I examined the clock more carefully and found a small micro SD card slot hidden on the bottom. I popped it out, and sure enough, there was a card inside. My mind was racing. Why would Jake put a hidden camera in our bedroom? The obvious answer made me feel physically sick, but I had to know for sure. I took the memory card to my laptop, and what I found shattered my world. Dozens of videos, dating back nearly 2 years, of Jake and me in our most intimate moments. Every video was neatly labeled with dates and occasionally notes like "good angle" or "use this one." I felt violated in the deepest way possible, but it got worse. There were also screenshots of text conversations between Jake and what appeared to be at least 5 of his friends, where he was sharing these videos and they were commenting on them. Some of the comments were so degrading and disgusting that I had to run to the bathroom to throw up. I spent the next hour in a daze, crying, raging, and trying to process what I'd discovered. This wasn't just a one-time mistake or a moment of poor judgment. This was calculated, continual violation of my privacy and dignity over years. This was the man I loved treating me like an object for entertainment. This was betrayal on a level I couldn't comprehend. When the initial shock subsided, my mind shifted to what to do next. My first instinct was to pack my bags and be gone before he got home, but something inside me refused to be the one to run. Why should I leave my apartment, my things, my life, when I did nothing wrong? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Jake had violated my trust in the most intimate way possible, and there needed to be consequences. I spent the next few hours making copies of everything on that memory card. The videos, the text conversations, the timestamps, everything that proved what he had done. I saved copies to my personal cloud storage and a separate USB drive I kept in my purse. Whatever happened next, I wanted evidence. Then I replaced the memory card in the clock and put everything back exactly as it had been. Jake came home around 6 p.m., acting completely normal, asking about my day, suggesting we order takeout for dinner. I played along, forcing myself to act natural while inside I was screaming. That night was the hardest performance of my life, lying next to him in bed, knowing what I knew, pretending everything was fine. I barely slept, my mind working overtime to process the betrayal and formulate a plan. Over the next week, I did more investigating. I discovered 2 more hidden cameras, one in our bathroom disguised as a wall hook and another in the living room inside a fake smoke detector. Each had its own memory card with more footage. I also found that Jake had a separate email account I didn't know about, where he communicated with his friends about their collection. Reading through those emails nearly broke me all over again, but they also strengthened my resolve. This wasn't going to end with me just walking away. Jake and his friends needed to face real consequences for what they had done. While maintaining the facade of our normal relationship, I consulted with a lawyer friend, without telling her the specifics, about the legality of what Jake had done. She confirmed it was absolutely illegal to record someone without their consent, especially in intimate settings, and doubly illegal to distribute those recordings. Armed with that knowledge, I started planning my revenge. I wanted this to impact every aspect of Jake's life: his friendship circle, his job, his family relationships, his reputation. He had violated me in every way. It seemed only fair the consequences should be equally comprehensive. But I also wanted to be strategic. I didn't want him to be able to paint me as the crazy ex or play the victim in any way. My plan took shape over the next 3 weeks. During this time, I pretended everything was normal while secretly preparing my exit. I set up a new apartment lease, slowly moved important documents and irreplaceable items to a friend's house, and compiled all the evidence into organized files. I also did some research on Jake's friends who had received the videos, finding their full names, workplaces, and in some cases, their partners' contact information. Finally, I took steps to financially disentangle myself from Jake, opening new bank accounts and credit cards in just my name. The execution day arrived on a Friday. Jake mentioned he was having the guys over for poker night the following evening while I was supposed to be at a weekend work retreat. This was perfect, all the perpetrators would be in one place. I told Jake I'd leave for my retreat early Saturday morning, but instead, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. Saturday morning, I pretended to leave for my retreat but actually went to a cafe nearby and waited. Around 7 p.m., I got a text from Jake saying the guys had arrived and they were starting their game. That was my cue. I had previously set up a special email address and prepared multiple emails with attachments and explanations. At 7:30 p.m., I pressed send on the first batch. Email number 1 went to Jake's HR department, his boss, and the company CEO. It contained select evidence of him using company equipment, the clock and other devices, for illegal surveillance, along with proof he had conducted this sharing activity occasionally during work hours on company devices. I didn't include the explicit videos but included enough screenshots of timestamps in his conversations to make it clear what had been recorded and shared. Email number 2 went to the wives and girlfriends of the 5 friends involved in receiving and commenting on the videos. These emails contained the text conversations showing their partner's participation and degrading comments, but again, no actual footage. Each email was personalized to the recipient, explaining that I had recently discovered this violation and that they deserved to know who they were with. Email number 3 went to Jake's parents, with whom he was very close. This was the most carefully worded email, explaining in general terms what their son had done without including graphic details or attachments. I explained that I was informing them not to hurt them but because I knew they had raised him with better values and might be the only people who could help him understand the severity of his actions and seek help. With the email sent, I drove back to our apartment complex but didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. Around 9 p.m., my phone started blowing up with texts from Jake, shifting rapidly from confusion to panic to anger. Apparently, the chaos had begun. From my vantage point, I could see cars hurriedly leaving our apartment complex, presumably the poker buddies whose phones had started receiving frantic calls from their partners. I didn't respond to any of Jake's increasingly desperate messages. Instead, I sent one final email, this time to Jake himself. I attached a complete file of all the evidence I had collected, including things I hadn't sent to others. I explained exactly how I had discovered his betrayal, how long I had known, and the steps I had taken in response. I made it clear that if he contacted me again with anything other than an acknowledgement of what he'd done and genuine remorse, or if he tried to retaliate in any way, I would take everything to the police and press charges to the fullest extent of the law. After sending that email, I blocked his number and drove to my new apartment. The next morning, reports from mutual friends started coming in. Jake had been put on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. 2 of his friends were in similar situations with their employers. All 5 relationships were in crisis, with at least 3 of the partners having already left. Jake's mother had apparently called him sobbing, and his father was refusing to speak to him at all. In the weeks that followed, the full impact of my revenge became clear. Jake was fired from his job after their investigation confirmed he had used company property for illegal activity. His friend group imploded as they turned on each other, each trying to minimize their own role. 3 of the 5 ended up divorced or broken up. Jake's family relationships were strained to the breaking point, with his sister, who had always been like a sister to me too, publicly disowning him on social media. As for me, I'm still healing. I've been in intensive therapy trying to process the violation and betrayal. Some days are better than others. I still have moments of paralyzing anger or crushing sadness, but I'm working through it. I've been slowly telling close friends what happened, and their support has been invaluable. I even filed a police report, though I chose not to press charges at this time, keeping that option as leverage should Jake ever try to contact me or retaliate. 6 months have passed now. I ran into one of Jake's friend's ex-girlfriends at a coffee shop last week. She thanked me for having the courage to expose everything, saying she had always felt something was off but could never put her finger on it. She told me Jake had moved to another state, unable to find work locally after word got around about what he'd done. Apparently, he's living with a distant cousin and working a minimum wage job, having lost everything: his career, his friends, his family's respect, and me. Do I regret how I handled it? Not for a second. Some might say I went too far, that I could have just left him and moved on with my life. But this wasn't a typical betrayal. This was a systematic, years-long violation that affected not just our relationship but my fundamental sense of safety and bodily autonomy. The punishment needed to fit the crime, and in this case, it did. If there's a lesson in all this, I guess it's to trust your instincts. Those small feelings that something isn't quite right? Don't ignore them. Ask questions. Look deeper. I wish I had questioned the new office devices Jake kept bringing home. I wish I'd wondered why he was so insistent on setting up all the technology in our home himself. I wish I'd paid more attention when he was protective of his phone or stayed up late online. But I'm also proud of myself for how I handled it once I discovered the truth. I didn't lash out immediately. I didn't give him the chance to delete evidence or spin a story. I was strategic and thorough, and because of that, there were real consequences for what he did. 3 days ago, I received a handwritten letter from Jake. It was the first contact since everything went down. I debated whether to read it, but curiosity won out. It was 10 pages of what seemed like genuine remorse, no excuses, no blame shifting, just acknowledgement of what he had done and how profoundly wrong it was. He wrote about the therapy he's now in, trying to understand why he violated someone he claimed to love. He didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation, just said he needed me to know how sorry he was and that he would carry the regret for the rest of his life. I read it once, then burned it in my kitchen sink. His remorse doesn't undo what he did, and it's not my responsibility to absolve him. My focus now is on rebuilding my sense of safety and trust. I've moved to a new apartment where I've personally checked every inch for hidden devices. I've switched careers to something I'm more passionate about. I'm even considering dating again, though the thought still terrifies me some days. This experience changed me fundamentally. I'm more cautious now, more vigilant. But I refuse to let it make me bitter or fearful forever. What Jake did was a reflection of his brokenness, not my worth. And the way I handled it showed me a strength in myself I never knew I had. For anyone going through something similar, know that you deserve better. Know that the violation wasn't your fault, and know that there can be justice, even when the betrayal feels too big to overcome. It's been a year since that Saturday morning when I discovered the camera, and so much has changed. I thought I'd provide an update since so many of you reached out with support after my original post. First, the legal aftermath. 3 months after my revenge plan, one of Jake's friend's ex-wives decided to press criminal charges against both her ex-husband and Jake. She reached out to me for support and additional evidence, which I provided. The case gained some local media attention, which led to 2 more women coming forward. Apparently, Jake and his friends had done this to previous girlfriends as well. The case is still making its way through the legal system, but Jake and 3 of his friends are now facing multiple felony charges related to illegal recording and distribution. Their lawyers are pushing for plea deals, but the prosecutor, a wonderfully fierce woman, is holding firm, seeking maximum penalties. On the personal front, I've continued therapy and have made real progress. The therapist helped me understand that my calculated revenge wasn't just about hurting Jake back, it was about reclaiming my power in a situation where I'd been made powerless. She says that while revenge isn't always the healthiest response, in my case, the methodical way I approached it was actually part of my processing the trauma. I moved again, to a different city this time. The fresh start has been good for me. I'm in a new job that I love, have made new friends, and have even started a support group for victims of intimate privacy violations. Helping other women navigate the emotional and legal aftermath of similar experiences has been unexpectedly healing. As for dating, I took a full year off from even thinking about romantic relationships. Recently, I've started seeing someone new. Taking things incredibly slowly, but he's patient and understanding about my trust issues. The first time we were intimate, I had a panic attack afterward, thinking about cameras and being recorded. Instead of getting upset or defensive, he helped me search the entire room to reassure me, then held me while I cried. That's when I knew this one might be worth the risk. I still have moments where the anger and violation hit me fresh, like a wave out of nowhere. Something as simple as seeing a digital clock or a smoke detector in someone's house can trigger anxiety. But those moments are becoming less frequent and less intense. Jake tried to contact me again, this time through his lawyer, asking if I would consider speaking with him as part of his therapy process. I declined. His healing is not my responsibility, and I've said all I need to say to him. Some people have asked if I regret not going to the police immediately instead of taking matters into my own hands. Honestly, no. The reality is that cases like mine often don't get the attention they deserve in the legal system. Victims are questioned and doubted, evidence gets mishandled, and even when convictions happen, sentences are often minimal. My approach ensured there were immediate consequences across every aspect of his life. And ironically, it's what ultimately led to the current criminal cases, as the exposure brought other victims forward in a way that a quiet police report might not have. The hardest part of this journey has been rebuilding my sense of privacy and safety. For months after the discovery, I would check every object in any room I entered, looking for cameras. I still sleep with a piece of tape over my laptop camera and disconnect my smart devices when not using them. My new apartment has minimal technology, no smart speakers, no internet-connected appliances, nothing that could potentially be monitoring me. Some might call it paranoia, but for me, it's about creating an environment where I can truly relax. If there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that healing isn't linear. Some days I feel completely at peace with what happened, proud of how I handled it, and optimistic about my future. Other days, the violation feels as raw as the day I discovered that first camera, and I find myself spiraling into what-ifs and second-guessing every relationship I've ever had. My therapist says both responses are normal and part of processing trauma. I've also learned the power of community. The support I've received from friends, family, and even strangers online has been overwhelming in the best way. So many people shared similar stories or offered resources that helped me navigate the aftermath. It's a terrible club to belong to, but the solidarity among survivors is powerful. 2 years after my discovery, life has settled into a new normal. The criminal case against Jake and his friends concluded 6 months ago. Jake received a 4-year sentence, though with good behavior, he'll likely serve only 2. 2 of his friends received similar sentences, while the other 3 took plea deals involving probation, community service, and sex offender registration. I testified during the sentencing phase, and looking Jake in the eye while describing how his actions impacted me was both terrifying and empowering. The most surprising development came 3 months ago. I received a message from Jake's sister, whom I'd always been close with before everything happened. She wanted to meet, and after some hesitation, I agreed. Over coffee, she revealed that after cutting ties with Jake, she'd done some soul-searching about warning signs she might have missed. This led her to check her own home, where she discovered hidden cameras in her bathroom and bedroom, installed during times Jake had stayed with her to help with home repairs. She's now pursuing her own case against him, and we've become close again through this horrible shared experience. On a more positive note, my relationship with the patient, understanding man I mentioned in my last update has grown stronger. We've now been together over a year. Moving in together is still a ways off. I need my own space that I control completely, but for the first time since Jake, I can envision a healthy future with someone. My partner has been incredibly respectful of my boundaries and understanding of my need for regular technology sweeps of his apartment before I stay over. The support group I started has grown to over 40 members, and we recently secured funding to create resources for others experiencing similar violations. We're developing guidelines for detecting hidden cameras, navigating the legal system, and healing from this specific type of betrayal. Working with these strong, resilient survivors has been the most healing part of my journey. I still have triggers. Hotel rooms are particularly difficult for me, and I've been known to check smoke detectors and alarm clocks everywhere I go. But the paralyzing fear has subsided. I've reclaimed my life, my sense of privacy, and my ability to trust, with appropriate verification. This experience will always be part of my story, but it no longer defines me. I'm more than what was done to me. I'm defined by how I responded, how I've helped others, and how I've rebuilt my life on my own terms. If you're reading this and going through something similar, please know it gets better. The violation feels all-consuming now, but it won't always. Find support, take action in whatever way feels right to you, and be patient with your healing process. Your power was taken without your consent, but you can reclaim it. As for me, I'm looking forward now more than back. I've started a new chapter, one where I'm not a victim or even just a survivor, but a woman living a full, meaningful life on her own terms. And there's a certain victory in that. It's been 5 years since I discovered the hidden cameras that changed my life, and this will be my final update on this chapter of my life. So much has happened, and I want to provide closure for those who have followed my story and supported me through this journey. The legal ramifications continued to unfold long after my last update. Jake served his full sentence with no early release. Apparently, he was not a model prisoner. Upon his release, he attempted to move back to our hometown but was met with such community resistance that he eventually relocated across the country. I've heard through mutual connections that he's working a warehouse job under his middle name, trying to outrun his past. The sex offender registry follows him, though, as it should. In an unexpected twist, my case and the subsequent legal proceedings caught the attention of a state representative, who reached out to me about helping draft stronger legislation around intimate privacy violations. For the past 2 years, I've been working with lawmakers to create more comprehensive laws with stricter penalties for these types of crimes. Last month, the bill passed in our state, and 2 neighboring states are using it as a model for similar legislation. Knowing that future victims will have stronger legal protections because of my experience brings meaning to a senseless violation. The support group I started has evolved into a formal nonprofit organization with chapters in 12 cities. We provide resources, legal advice, and emotional support to victims, and we've helped over 300 people navigate similar situations. We've developed relationships with law enforcement agencies to train officers on handling these cases with appropriate sensitivity, and we provide expert witnesses for trials. This work has become my passion, and while I maintain my regular career, I devote significant time to growing this organization. On the personal front, I'm happy to share that I'm engaged to the patient, understanding man I mentioned in previous updates. Our relationship has grown slowly but surely, built on a foundation of radical honesty and respect for boundaries. He proposed a year ago, and we're planning a small wedding for next spring. Moving in together was a huge step that took extensive preparation and therapy, but we've created a home that feels completely safe to me. We have strict technology rules and regular security checks that might seem extreme to outsiders but work for us. The hypervigilance I developed after the discovery has mellowed somewhat. I still check hotel rooms and new environments, but the process is quick and routine rather than anxiety-driven. I've reclaimed many aspects of normal life that were difficult before, changing in locker rooms, using public restrooms, staying in hotels. Small victories, but significant ones. I've also reconnected with Jake's sister, who has become one of my closest friends again. Her own case against him resulted in additional charges that extended his sentence, and she's now a key part of our nonprofit's leadership team. Her perspective as both a family member of a perpetrator and a victim herself brings valuable insight to our work. Together, We've helped other families navigate the complicated emotions that arise when someone you love commits these violations. Perhaps the most profound change has been in how I view this chapter of my life. What happened to me was objectively terrible, a betrayal of the most intimate kind. Yet the person I've become because of it is stronger, more compassionate, and more purpose-driven than I might otherwise have been. I've helped change laws, supported hundreds of victims, and built a life that feels authentic and meaningful. That doesn't excuse or justify what Jake did, but it means he didn't win. He didn't break me. For those still in the early stages of discovery and healing from similar violations, I want you to know that the acute pain does subside. The journey isn't quick or linear, but there is a future where this terrible thing that happened to you is just one part of your story, not its defining chapter. I won't be posting further updates about this situation. It's time to fully close this chapter and focus on the life ahead of me, my upcoming marriage, our plans for a family, the growing impact of our nonprofit, and all the ordinary joys and challenges that have nothing to do with what Jake did. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey, from those first shocking days of discovery through the careful execution of my revenge plan and the long healing process that followed. Your encouragement, shared experiences, and kind words helped more than you know. Life after betrayal is possible. Not just survival, but genuine thriving. Trust carefully, but don't stop trusting altogether. Build your boundaries based on wisdom, not fear. And remember that how someone treats you reflects their character, not your worth. This is where my story with Jake ends, and the rest of my life, unrelated to him or what he did, continues. And there's a piece in that I couldn't have imagined 5 years ago.